Heraclitus, the Buddha of Greece? OSHO's profound insights. Heraclitus was a truly remarkable phenomenon. Had he been born in India or the East, he would have been revered as a Buddha. But in the context of Greece, he was an outsider, a stranger. In Greece, he was never recognized as an enlightened being. Instead, he was known as Heraclitus the Obscure, Heraclitus the Dark, Heraclitus the Enigmatic. Aristotle, the father of Greek philosophy and the foundation of Western thought, dismissed Heraclitus as anything but a philosopher. He once remarked, "At best, he is a poet," though he was reluctant to even admit that. Later, Aristotle went further, saying, "There must be some inherent flaw in Heraclitus's nature, perhaps a defect at birth that makes him speak so ambiguously, so paradoxically." To Aristotle, Heraclitus was eccentric, perhaps even insane, and Aristotle's influence has shaped the entire course of Western philosophy. Had Heraclitus been understood, the history of the West might have taken an entirely different path, but no one could comprehend him, and so he drifted further away from the mainstream of Western thought. Heraclitus was much like Gautama Buddha and Lao Tzu. But Greece was not fertile ground for such a being. Had he lived in the East, he would have been a great spiritual master, and millions would have found their path through him. But in Greece, he remained an outcast, a misfit, an alien presence. That is why his name has remained in the shadows, on the margins of history, gradually fading into obscurity. The moment Heraclitus was born, humanity itself had reached a new peak, a moment of transformation. Such moments happen not only for civilizations, but also for individuals. Every 7 years, a person's body undergoes a complete transformation. Over a lifespan of 70 years, your entire biological system will have changed 10 times. If one understands this, moments of transition become great opportunities for meditation and awakening. At the age of 14, sexual energy arises for the first time. A biological shift occurs. If at this moment one is introduced to the dimension of meditation, the journey toward higher consciousness becomes much easier. At 21, another deep transformation occurs, because the body renews itself every 7 years. By the age of 35, another shift happens, and so forth. Every 7 years, the old disappears, the new emerges, and in this transition, everything is fluid. If one desires to enter life through a new dimension, this is the time to act. The same phenomenon applies to human civilization. Every 25 centuries, humanity reaches a peak, a great moment of change. If one recognizes and seizes this moment, enlightenment becomes more accessible. At other times, it is more difficult because the river of life flows in a certain direction, and change is resisted. 25 centuries ago, the world saw the birth of Gautama Buddha and Mahavira in India, Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu in China, Zarathustra in Persia, and Heraclitus in Greece. They were the summit of human consciousness. Never before had there been such a convergence of wisdom. Or if there had been, it is lost to history, because history, as we know it, only begins with Jesus. We do not know what happened before that. And now, once again, we stand at the threshold of another transformation. The old has lost its meaning. The past holds no relevance anymore. The future is uncertain. We are in the gap between worlds, and just as in the time of Heraclitus, humanity is once again reaching a great peak. If we are even slightly aware, we can take advantage of this moment. When everything is fluid, transformation is effortless. But when everything becomes rigid, change becomes nearly impossible. Heraclitus, the enigmatic mystic beyond logic. Heraclitus was a rare phenomenon, one of the deepest minds, a soul as towering as Mount Everest among the Himalayas. Understanding him is not easy, and that is why he was called Heraclitus the Obscure. But he was not truly obscure. Rather, it is difficult to understand him because it requires a transformation within oneself. That is the real challenge. It is easier to label him too difficult to understand and move on, forgetting about him altogether. There are two types of thinkers. To understand Aristotle, you don't need to change your being. You just need a little information. Schools can teach logic and philosophy. You can collect some knowledge and grasp Aristotle. You do not need to transform yourself to understand him. Just accumulate a bit of intellectual understanding. Your being remains unchanged. Aristotle is not difficult. Anyone with an average intellect and reasoning ability can understand him. But to understand Heraclitus, no amount of accumulated knowledge will help. Your very being must transform, and that is where the difficulty lies. You need to be reborn in a new awareness. That is why Heraclitus was labeled obscure, not because he was unclear, but because he required transformation in his listeners. When Heraclitus spoke, it seemed as if he deliberately made things difficult, as if he enjoyed creating paradoxes. All those who truly know always speak in paradoxes. This is not because they want to confuse people, but because life itself is paradoxical. If you avoid paradoxes, you can create tidy, systematic, easily understandable theories, but they will be false, for they will not reflect the truth of life. Aristotle was like a carefully manicured garden, clean, structured, predictable. Heraclitus was like an untamed forest, wild, vast, full of mysteries. For Aristotle, there was no confusion. He avoided paradoxes. He built a logical system that was clear and appealing to the mind. But facing Heraclitus is terrifying because he opens the door to existence itself, and existence is filled with paradoxes. Buddha is a paradox. Lao Tzu is a paradox. All those who truly understand life become paradoxical. What else can they do? If life is paradoxical, they must remain truthful to it. But life does not follow logic. It follows logos, but not logic. It is a cosmos, not a chaos, but it does not conform to human logic. Logos versus logic. The key to understanding Heraclitus. To truly grasp Heraclitus, one must understand the difference between logos and logic. Heraclitus used the word logos extensively. Logic is the intellectual framework of what is considered rational, while logos is the very essence of truth itself. Logos is existence. Logic is a human construct. If you look at life, death is inevitable. How can you avoid it? Every moment of living is also a moment of dying. The instant you are born, you begin to die. And if this is true, then the reverse must also be true. When you die, you are reborn. Life and death are not separate phenomena. They are two aspects of the same reality. They are like two sides of a coin, two complementary opposites. If you look deeply enough, you will see that life is death, and death is life. Just as you cannot walk using only one leg, you cannot experience life without death. They are interwoven, inseparable. But logical minds want clarity, so they separate things. Life is life. Death is death. They are two separate things. Aristotle declared A is A and A cannot be B. This became the foundation of Western thought, a rejection of contradictions. Love is love. Hate is hate. Love cannot contain hate. But this is nonsense. In love, there is hate. It must be so. That is the nature of reality. You love someone, but you also hate them at times. You cannot escape it. If you try to avoid this duality, your love becomes artificial, shallow, inauthentic. That is why love in modern society often feels fake. It is not real, not heartfelt, because people are trying to suppress its opposite. You say, "He is my friend," and a friend can never be an enemy. He is my enemy. and an enemy can never be a friend. But this is an illusion. An enemy is a hidden friend. A friend is a potential enemy. One is always present within the other, just hidden beneath the surface. To see both at the same time is overwhelming. If you see the enemy within a friend, you cannot love him fully. If you see the friend within an enemy, you cannot hate him completely. This is why life seems confusing, because we refuse to accept paradoxes. But Heraclitus embraced them fully. He did not simplify life. Instead, he revealed its true depth, its wild beauty. And that is why he was misunderstood. Everything flows. The philosophy of Heraclitus. Heraclitus is often labeled as a difficult or obscure figure. But he isn't confusing at all. He simply lived life in full accordance with its nature. Whatever life might be, he merely narrated it as it is. He didn't offer a doctrine about life. He wasn't the one to create a system. He was simply a mirror. He only described life in its intrinsic way. Your face changes and the mirror reflects that. When you are in love, the mirror reflects that too. The next moment when hatred fills you, the mirror mirrors that image as well. The mirror doesn't complicate things. It reflects the truth. Aristotle, on the other hand, was not like a mirror. He was like a static photograph. It doesn't change or adapt with life. That is why Aristotle claimed there was something flawed about the man named Heraclitus, a defect in his character. For Aristotle, the mind must be clear, systematic, and rational. Logic should be the ultimate goal of life, and one must not mix with opposites. But who really mixes with opposites? Heraclitus did not. They simply exist there, intermingled. Heraclitus was not responsible for their union. And how can you separate them if they are already so intertwined? Sure, in textbooks you might be able to do that, but those textbooks are false. Essentially, any logical statement is untrue when it comes to describing life, and a statement about life can't be strictly logical because life itself exists through contradictions. Illness isn't inherently bad. It is through illness that you eventually regain health. Everything is connected in a harmony, and that is why Heraclitus is called the difficult one. Surely Laozi would understand him on a profound level, but Aristotle would not. Unfortunately, Aristotle is celebrated as Greece's greatest philosopher and thinker. Even more regrettable is that Greek thought forms the very foundation of Western philosophy. So, what is Heraclitus's most profound message? Understand it so that you can follow it. He didn't believe in static things. He believed in process. For him, process was supreme. And if you observe carefully, you will notice that static, unchanging things do not exist in this world. Everything is a process. In fact, using the verb is fundamentally wrong regarding existence because everything is in a state of becoming. Nothing is fixed in a state of isness. Absolutely nothing. You might say, this is a tree. But at the moment you say that, the tree has already grown. Your statement is no longer accurate. The tree is never static, so how can you use the word is? It is always in the process of becoming something else. Everything evolves, moves, following a continuous process. Life is motion. It is like a river constantly flowing. Heraclitus said, you cannot step into the same river twice because by the time you step into the river a second time, it has changed. It is a continuous flow. Can you meet the same person twice? No way. You were here yesterday morning, but am I still the same as I was yesterday? Are you still the same as you were yesterday? Both the river and the person have changed. You might be here again tomorrow, but you won't find me. Someone else will be here instead of me. Life is always changing. Only change is permanent, Heraclitus declared. Only change remains constant. Everything else transforms. He believed in an eternal cycle. Everything revolves. This is the very nature of existence. To be actually means to become. Remaining in the same place where you exist means you are moving. You cannot stand still because nothing is truly immobile. Even the hills, even the mighty Himalayas, are not stationary. They move, and they move swiftly. They are born, and then they die. The Himalayas are among the youngest mountain ranges in the world, and they continue to grow. They have not yet reached their peak. They are still very young, rising about 30 centimeters each year. There are ancient mountain ranges that have not reached their summit. Now they have grown old, hunched over, slumping. The walls you see around you, every molecule within them, is in motion. You can't see that motion because it is so fast and subtle. Nowadays, physicists agree with Heraclitus, not with Aristotle. Remember, whenever science draws closer to reality, people end up agreeing with Laozi and Heraclitus. Today, physicists say that everything is always in motion. Eddington once remarked that the only error in our language is the notion of rest. Nothing rests. Nothing can rest. That term is misleading. It does not correspond to reality. When Heraclitus spoke of the river, and the river held incredibly deep meaning for him, he meant that you cannot bathe in the same river twice. He also implied that even if you could, you would no longer be the same person. You would only superficially resemble your former self. Not only does the river change, but you have changed too. This is Heraclitus's most profound message. Everything flows and transforms. Everything moves and nothing remains still. The moment you cling to something, you miss the reality of its change. Your clinging becomes problematic because reality is in constant flux while you stubbornly hold on. No, you cannot bathe in the same river twice. It simply cannot happen. Do not cling. If you cling, you create your own hell. Clinging is hell, whereas a mind that does not cling is always in heaven. You go with the flow. You embrace the mood and accept change without resentment or complaint because this is life. You may struggle, but you cannot change it. Embrace the ever-changing self, finding the sacred in every moment. Be true to your ever-changing self, for it is the only reality. Life moves from one extreme to another, and Heraclitus believed that this is the secret, a hidden harmony. There is a story as follows. Once, when some visitors unexpectedly saw Heraclitus warming himself by a fire, he said to them, "This too is God." He never went to temples because if you are truly aware, if your eyes are wide open and you can listen and feel, why would you need to go to a temple? This too is God. God is not man. God is everything. God is existence itself. Imagine this scene. Heraclitus sitting by a fire, warming himself. The crackling of the burning wood, the flames leaping toward the heavens, the comforting warmth. It must have been a bitterly cold winter night when unexpected guests arrived and asked, "What are you doing?" And Heraclitus replied, "This too is God." He meant that this was a form of prayer, that by warming himself, he was engaging in prayer, for the fire had become a sacred phenomenon. This story reminds me of Zen master Ikkyu. Once, Zen master Ikkyu visited a monastery to spend the night. That night was very cold, so he needed to build a fire. Finding no firewood anywhere, he took a wooden Buddha statue and set it alight. Awakened by the noise and the crackling flames, the abbot was startled and couldn't believe his eyes. This was no ordinary monk, but a renowned Zen master. Jumping out of bed, the abbot demanded, "What are you doing? You've burned a Buddha statue." Ikkyu picked up a stick and searched for relics among the ashes. The statue had nearly been reduced to nothing. The abbot asked, "What are you looking for? The statue is gone." Ikkyu replied, "I'm looking for relics." Surely the Buddha must have left relics behind. The abbot laughed heartily and said, "Now I'm convinced you've lost your mind. How can a wooden statue have relics?" Ikkyu answered, "Then bring 2 more wooden Buddha statues here, for the night is long and bitterly cold, and the Buddha within us needs warmth. These are just wooden statues, so don't worry. What matters is the real relic within us, the true Buddha, and that inner Buddha craves a bit of warmth. Those statues are of no use. They have no relics, so have no fear." The abbot expelled him from the monastery. That night was freezing, yet some people continued to venerate the wooden Buddha statues while rejecting the true Buddha. The next morning, the abbot went out to see what had become of Ikkyu. He found him sitting just outside the monastery, near a cluster of trees, venerating them. With the sun high in the sky on that beautiful morning, Ikkyu had gathered a few wildflowers and placed them on the trees, worshipping them. The abbot ran over and asked, "What are you doing? You've truly lost it. Last night you insisted on burning a Buddha statue, and now you're worshipping a clump of trees." Ikkyu replied, "This too is heaven. As Heraclitus said, this too is God. If you can feel that every moment is sacred and that everything is imbued with the sacred, then all that exists is sacred. If you cannot feel it, then go to monasteries or temples, but you won't find anything there because what really needs to change is you, not your surroundings or circumstances. The situation remains the same. Inside a monastery, outside a monastery, God is everywhere. It is only that you fail to see Him, so you change locations. You leave your home to go to a temple in search of God. What you need is a transformation from within. Changing your external situation does nothing to help. You need to change your mindset. You need to view everything in an entirely new way. Then suddenly, the entire world will become a monastery. There will be nothing else." Fire as the vital element, unveiling the living, ever-rising symbol. For Heraclitus, fire became a symbol, and a beautiful one at that. He maintained that fire is the very foundation of all existence, that everything is nothing more than an interplay of polar opposites. Heraclitus declared, "It is fire." What is the distinction here? Fire is simply a more evocative word than electricity. Fire exudes a livelier, wilder energy compared to the cold mechanics of electricity. When you say that electricity is the foundation, as if the entire universe were a machine built on mechanistic principles, making God appear as a mere engineer, what you are really referring to is fire. The Hindus call this fundamental element prana, the energy of life, but life itself is fire. When you are vibrant, full of energy, you are ignited, ablaze. Henry Bergson similarly described the underlying force of all things as elan vital, the life force, much like prana. Those who have searched and continue to search have in some measure come close to this fire. Deep within every existence lies fire. Fire is life. And Zarathustra was right when he proclaimed that he had transformed fire into God, imbuing it with supreme power. He must have agreed with Heraclitus. After all, Zarathustra and Heraclitus were contemporaries. For the adherents of Zarathustra, fire had become God. Fire carries layers of hidden meaning. You must understand that the phenomenon of fire is used symbolically, a figure of speech, a metaphor. There is something deep that Heraclitus wished to emphasize when he said that fire is the foundation. Consider a flame on a bitterly cold winter's night. Sit by the hearth, watch it dance, and feel its warmth. Cold signifies death, while warmth signifies life. A dead body is cold, a living body is warm, and we must continuously maintain a certain level of warmth. There exists within us an inner mechanism to keep our heat constant, for life can only thrive within a specific range of temperatures. This is why we speak of a warm welcome rather than a cold reception, why we cherish warm affection instead of indifferent, icy regard. The sun is that very source of warmth. Its energy is fire. Observe, when night falls, everything grows somber. Even trees and birds fall silent. No chirps, no melodies remain. Flowers close their petals and the earth itself seems to await the coming day. And when dawn breaks, even before the sun appears, the earth is already poised to welcome it. Birds begin their song even before sunrise, a herald of welcome. Flowers start to bloom again. Life reawakens and movement resumes. Fire is also a symbol of profound significance in many other respects. If you observe a flame, you will notice its relentless upward motion. While water flows downward, fire surges upward. That is why the Hindus speak of the Kundalini fire. When ignited, you are not like water, but like a flame. As your inner self transforms, you feel a fire rising within you. Even water, upon encountering fire, begins to evaporate and ascend. In an ancient Tibetan scripture, the teacher is likened to fire while the student is compared to water. When water comes into contact with fire, the student's nature transforms. They begin to take on the qualities of fire, just as heated water starts to vaporize. Water devoid of fire flows downward. With fire present, transformation is immediate. Beyond 100 degrees Celsius, fire causes water to vaporize, altering its direction of movement. Fire is always moving upward. Even if you turn a lamp upside down, the flame still points upward. A flame cannot point downward. Fire embodies the striving to reach the highest peak, the ultimate pinnacle. Heraclitus chose this symbol perfectly. It isn't so much a philosophical assertion as it is a poetic image. In the annals of Greek philosophy, thinkers like Thales, Anaxagoras, Anaximenes, and others debated which of the four elements, earth, water, fire, or air, was primary. Some posited that earth was fundamental, others, water, still others, fire, and some, air. Heraclitus also asserted that fire is the fundamental element, but not in the way Thales did. This isn't a doctrinal claim, nor is it a subject of philosophical system. Heraclitus was not setting forth a doctrine. He was a poet, not a philosopher. He presented a symbol, and that symbol carries far more meaning than the word fire alone. Observe fire from the outside, then from within, and strive to become as much like a flame as possible. That is why, when someone unexpectedly saw Heraclitus warming himself by the fire, he said to them, "This too is God." "I have sought myself," he declared. "Time is like a child moving the pieces. Supreme power lies in the hands of a child. Supreme power lies in the hands of a child, and time is that child shuffling the deck. Life is like a game. Don't turn it into a business venture or you will miss everything. You miss out because you treat it as a transaction when it is merely a game. Play well, but don't expect to profit from it. Be like a child. Play without fretting over what you might gain. Children, even when they lose, dance and revel in joy. In a game, defeat is not truly defeat. Loss is not a failure. Conversely, if you make it a business, even victory becomes a defeat. Just ask Napoleon or Alexander, when you reduce life to a venture, even winning is a loss. In the end, what do you gain? You win, yet you achieve nothing. You long for a goal, and once you attain it, disappointment sets in, as if your entire life has slipped away. Remember, your life will be lost if you chase after goals, because life itself has no goal. It is a purposeless game that goes nowhere. It simply revels in its own being. This is perhaps the most baffling notion, for the mind belongs to the realm of mathematics. It asks, then what is the meaning of life? What is our purpose in living? But if there is no purpose, there is no meaning. And immediately the mind inquires, if life is meaningless, why live at all? Why not just end it? Yet consider this. If there were meaning, everything would become tainted, like a business venture. If there were a purpose, life would lose its poetry. Poetry exists precisely because there is no purpose. Why do roses bloom? Ask a rose. It would reply, I don't know, but I bloom beautifully regardless. My blooming is beautiful in itself. Ask a bird, why do you sing? And it would be taken aback by such a silly question. Singing is a beautiful act, a blessing in itself. So why ask? Still, the mind is always seeking a goal. It is forever trying to attain something. It cannot simply enjoy life. It insists that there must be something to achieve in the future, some objective to reach, for then it will feel satisfied. Without something to achieve, the mind descends. Yet that is the essence of all striving. Let it fall away. There is no purpose, no objective. In this very moment, all of existence is celebrating, everyone except you. So why not join in? Why not be like a flower blooming without purpose? Why not be like a river flowing endlessly? Why not be like the ocean, alive with crashing waves? As Heraclitus put it, time is a child shuffling the cards. Supreme power lies in the hands of the child. And every child is a king. Just observe a child, each one is a sovereign. Look at their unbridled movement. Even when a child is bare, no emperor can rival its freedom. Why are children so beautiful? Every child, without exception, is beautiful. What is that beauty? It comes from the fact that a child has not yet been tainted by a mind that compulsively searches for purpose, goals, or meaning. It simply plays. It cares nothing for tomorrow. A child goes home one day. Its mother, angry, exclaims, I heard the neighborhood kids say you threw mud into a girl's mouth and got punished by having to stand outside all day. The child replies, Yes, ma'am. Horrified, the mother demands, Why? Why did you throw mud? The child shrugs and answers, Because her mouth was open. The question, why, is utterly meaningless. The boy had mud in his hand and the girl's mouth was agape. What else was there to do? It simply happened. We keep asking why, but why is irrelevant to a child. That is just the way things happen. The girl's mouth was open and he had mud in his hand. The child did nothing with malice. We were wrong to punish him. He didn't do anything intentionally. Events unfolded as they naturally must. The girl happened to be standing there with her mouth agape. The child did not intend to hurt or offend anyone. He simply seized the opportunity and enjoyed it. And yet we ask, why? There is an abyss between a child and an adult. They inhabit two entirely separate realms. A child cannot comprehend what an adult says because it lives in a completely different dimension, the realm of play. Conversely, an adult cannot understand a child's actions because he is a business person living in the world of why, causes, and reasons. The two will never meet, cannot meet, and are incapable of understanding one another, unless the adult becomes a child. Only a saint, a true sage, can understand a child because he remains a child at heart. He can understand. If you could be reborn as a child, you would have everything. If not, you have missed it all. The true sage is the one who is born twice. The children born the first time are not truly children because they must eventually grow up. The second birth is a genuine rebirth. When one is reborn, one grants oneself the opportunity to be born anew. IT is a process of transformation in which one becomes a child again. One does not search for reasons or causes. One simply lives. One lives moment to moment, regardless of what it brings. One has no plans, no expectations. One lives without demanding anything, and that is the only way to truly live. Otherwise, you only appear to live without really living. To a child, nothing is inherently good or bad. There is no God, no devil. The child accepts everything. Once again, the sage accepts everything. That is why he can say that God is both winter and summer, that God is both war and peace, that God embodies both good and evil simultaneously. For the sage, all distinctions of ethics and virtue vanish. Everything is sacred and every place is important. The truly blessed do not need to pray. Prayer is a poor substitute. The blessed do not require meditation. They can live happily in each moment, doing all that is possible. Everything is sacred and divine. You can savor your food in a way that transforms it into a prayer. You can love someone so wholly that your love becomes a prayer. You can dig a hole in your garden in such a way that it turns into a prayer. Prayer is not a ritual. It is the quality of the act of praying that imbues it with meaning. Supreme power lies in the hands of the child. Why is that? Because supreme power is purity. God comes to you when you are pure. When you resort to cunning, the door shuts. Never destroy the purity of anyone, and never sow doubt in the hearts of the pure, because purity is the ultimate power. Once faith is destroyed, that purity is lost, and then everything becomes exceedingly difficult. It's like a mirror that has been shattered. Time is a child shuffling the cards. Supreme power lies in the hands of the child. Regarding time, Heraclitus did not develop any mathematical theory. Instead, he described time as being like a child shuffling cards in a game. They move continuously, day and night. Heraclitus did not believe that time goes anywhere. It shifts, it rotates in a circle. It does not follow a straight line. It is like a wheel. You must understand this. All scientists view time as linear, moving along a straight path. Yet those who grasp the inner essence see time as a wheel. It does not proceed in a straight line, but rather in a circle. There is a reason for this. Scientists tend to see only a part of the whole. The scientific mind is concrete and specialized. A scientist sees a segment and then subdivides that segment into even smaller parts. In this endless division, the whole is lost. The discipline of science allows for clearer focus on each part, but as clarity increases, the overall picture diminishes. It becomes an atom, the tiniest part, and then, ultimately, just a fleeting moment. If you look at a small piece of a circle, it may appear as a straight line, but the circle itself is vast, like the earth. Here we are, and if we draw a line and you assume it is truly straight, you are mistaken. On a round earth, how can any line be perfectly straight? If you continue drawing that line, eventually it will curve into a circle that encircles the earth. Thus, all straight lines are merely small segments of a larger circle. Science, by its very nature, cannot perceive the whole. That is why time appears to move linearly. Religion, on the other hand, sees the whole. Science misses the forest for the trees, focusing on individual details. Religion may overlook the details, but it sees the entire forest. When you look at the whole, you realize that everything fits into a circle. All motion is circular, and time too is a circular movement. It is a game, moving continuously without ever going anywhere. Once you see that time is simply revolving in a circle, the mind's tension to reach some destination dissolves. Striving to get somewhere in the future becomes futile and meaningless, and you can finally begin to savor the moment. Life is not about the struggle to achieve something. It is a celebration. Heraclitus remarked that blind faith is a kind of religious sickness. Yet even so, you should never transform that into a doctrine. The very moment you formulate a doctrine and declare, "This is right," you begin to convert others, and your ego awakens. Suddenly, The issue is no longer, this is right, but you are right. How could you possibly be wrong? At that point, the sickness of fanaticism takes hold. Whenever someone starts to worship in such a rigid way, that disease of blind faith emerges. It is rare indeed to find a worshiper who is not afflicted by it. This very scenario occurred once. Seeing Mullah Nasruddin drinking at a tavern, I asked him, "Nasruddin, what are you doing? Just yesterday you told me you had given up alcohol, so why are you here now?" He replied, "Yes, I am abstaining from alcohol, but I am not blind. No matter who you are, remain flexible. Don't confine yourself, keep moving, and go with the flow. Sometimes you must break free from your own strict discipline. Life is far greater than your personal code. Sometimes you have to go entirely against your own rules because God is both summer and winter. Don't become a victim of blind faith. Be devout, yet do not become a disciple. Let the entire earth be your temple. Let all of existence be your monastery. And if you can embrace the whole, why settle for only a part? Why confine yourself to being merely a disciple? When you have the chance to be truly human, why choose to be labeled? Abandon all labels.